he and I, in our journey to orthodoxy, have gone a little separate directions. He went into the priesthood. I became more active in iconography. And my desire to learn about iconography brought me to a teacher, Vladislav Andreev, who taught me some methods to do iconography that really resonated with my soul and helped me draw closer to God. And when we came here to St. Sophia's, I wanted to be able to share that joy that I've received in the icons and in Christ through the icons to the young people that are a part of our parish. So when our church became active in the Telos project, I volunteered to teach the young people in the church what all is involved in the writing of an icon from beginning to end. And I wanted them to not just look at the icon and watch somebody do it, but to actually participate themselves. Now today, I won't be able to have people join us in the actual writing of the icon, but we have some of the folks watching on this YouTube channel, and we will, once the pandemic is over, join again together to participate together in writing these. Let me show you some of the steps that we've already done. This one is just a drawing that started out. What we wanted to do was work on an icon of a saint that really connected with Christ. And I thought, who better than the prophet Moses, at least to connect the Old and the New Testament. The prophet Moses was able to experience God's presence in the burning bush. And we have that image that we're going to be working on. So we took this drawing, maybe come a little closer, we're transferred it onto the board, and then one of the first steps after drawing the image on the board is to actually put the clay down and start the gilding process. That begins the connection between the icon and God himself, the spiritual and the material world. And then we use special tools. This shows the ruling pen and making the red line around the halo. And then the first step after that is to draw all the lines and then begin to bring some color into the icon. This is called Rosecrans, and it's kind of rough pigments initially, and then we'll work our way up to lighter and brighter pigments. And this shows the icon after some of the highlights have been placed in there. That gives form to the shapes themselves. And actually now we can switch to the icon itself, because that's basically where we're at. You want to get a close-up of that, please? So when you do the writing of an icon, it's kind of a liturgical process. There are very distinct steps involved in the process, from the making of the board and the gesso on the board up to the final church blessing and contemplation that the viewer has with the icon itself. We've finished the clay and the gold, the red line, the Rosecrans first lines, first light, what we're going to be doing. And the first light was combined a little bit with the second light so we could move forward a little bit. But we haven't done any floating yet. So that's what this class is going to be about, that floating process, which is, technically, it's like almost like a glaze, where you add egg and water, that's our main egg tempera, and then you mix color in that and make it quite transparent color. But that color is gone over the forms that have the highlight on it, and then it combines the two. It's like a veil over the two, so it covers a little bit of the highlight, softens that, and allows you to have a space to go deeper in one sense, but also elevate the form even more, if that makes sense. So that you're covering, but you're also opening a way for there to be more built on that. And it's kind of like repentance. You recognize that it's not finished yet, that there's things that separate this image from the final image, and you need to cover those things. Like these are definitely brighter than anything else, so that's going to have to be covered. The face is going to be covered a little bit, not totally, because you still want that base of understanding of what happened, what you're building, but you want more possibility for further highlights and things like that. So the volume is built by that continual application of float, which we'll do now, and then there'll be a second highlight, not in as many places as before, more minimally placed so that you can get a real sense of that shape of the figure. Let me start here. Does that make sense, Dean? Okay. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask too. So the egg and the water is what we use, that's the medium, and that I already mixed up yesterday. It's 1 part egg yolk to 2 parts wine, and then mixed all together. So that I use. Now I already mixed one color here that I am going to be using on all of the flesh color here, and then I'll mix one to show you how that's done as well. So this is a combination of Venetian red and a little bit of gold ochre, and I'm going to add some of that. A little orange ochre to that, just to make it a little brighter. So I don't want to, if this color is kind of cool, the float that goes over top is going to be a little warmer because you don't want to do the same exact thing that you did before or you never move forward. If you continually do the same thing, you really don't build any form. And that's kind of like repentance too. You recognize that some of the things that you've done in the past were not healthy. Yes, you may have some issues in the future, but you've learned from those things in the past, so you want to build on that. So I'm going to add a little bit of golden. So this is the pigment, and right now I'm adding a little bit of orange ochre to that. And just mix it together. Some of the pigments are coarser than others. These are fairly fine, so I don't have to do a lot as far as that. And then this is mineral water or spring water. I'm just going to add a couple, maybe 3. It's basically equal of the medium versus the water as far as the floating. So you're combining a water mixture and an egg mixture. And both of those, the egg helps to join things, the water helps everything, the movement of the paint in the medium. And I use a fairly soft brush. This is a squirrel brush from Russia. We're going to be working on a small area, so I'm just going to use a relatively small brush. And it's not a hard process. The difficult thing is picking the color that's going to help join what you've already done without covering it up, but also add just that little nuance of a different color, a richer color, brighter color maybe that you can build on. But for Moses, I wanted something a little reddish too because of the fire of the burning bush, to start out maybe with that. But the consistency is key. Now here, I think it might be still a little too thick, because that, if I put that down, that's gonna cover. See how it doesn't even drip off of the brush? So I'm gonna add a little more water to that. And I'll test in an area too. I usually will test in like maybe a foot or something before I go to the face, just to be sure I'm right. But you can always push it. If it's the right consistency, it can be pushed. And if it's not right, you can always add water to it. Like I can put it down and say, oh, that doesn't look right. And like I've said in the past, there's no mistake that can't be corrected. We can always dab it up with a paper towel. That's why I've got this handy right here. So, but we'll try on the foot here and then see if that works well. And I'm going to take off my glasses just because I'm nearsighted. Okay, so we start out, and I'm just going to put it down and then start pushing it. I don't want to push it too far, and I've got to be able to still see what's underneath. So I think I am going to add a little more water to that. Because it looks like it's almost covering it all up, and we don't want to do that. We want to see what's underneath. I'm going to add some here into some of this in the water. And it takes a little while to dry when it's puddled like this. So I don't have to worry too much. I can add this liquidy stuff to this and I'll still be fine. And just push that down. And then I can wipe my brush off because that'll make this dry and it'll make me be able to pick up some of that paint better too. So see how that's much lighter down there? Much more transparent. So that's way better down here. And I can pick some of that up and push that around a little bit. And then that way we can still see those highlights that are there. They haven't disappeared completely, but we have an area where we can add more highlight. Does that make sense? Okay. So we'll use that more transparent one now. And I'll do, since the arm and the foot are kind of all connected there, I'm going to start up at the arm and work my way down without getting my arm in this. Usually you start at the top and work down. In fact, I might turn it a little bit just so I'm less likely to put my arm in that. Because that's one of the things about float. If I do this area, I'm not going to want to do this right next because they'll join each other and you'll get colors and mess it up. So same thing, I just start up at the top. And you don't do a lot before you add more paint on your brush. A little bit more. And just kind of go next to it and then push it right up to that one and then join. So everything's kind of penetrating and giving that place where now we can elevate the image to even greater. One of the teachers that's in the same group that I'm in said that when you have light in a room like this, electric light, and you want to see what sunlight's like, you don't turn on the lights more inside. You actually have to go outside and look at a completely different kind of light. So we're preparing the place now for a richer light, because this is more kind of bodily light, if you will, the first highlight, but then we go more to the light of the soul. So we're preparing the ground for that, or the space for that maybe. They're still visible. And if there's some areas that need more, you can always come back. Like that seemed a little white there. You can just kind of go back and check and see. You don't want to do that too much because then you can cause spotting, but at this point it's fine. So now I think we'll do the face. And at this point, you not only do just the face, but you do the hair as well, because it's all the head. Later on, you can separate the hair from the face, but if you do it too soon, it looks like a toupee stuck on his head or whatever. So we'll just do both the hair and the face now and try to avoid the foot there. Sometimes I'll tip it up even a little bit when I'm working, and that way I can see better, but also it kind of floats down, and then I can see what's going on. So it goes fairly quickly, and if you've got your color right, it really isn't difficult, and again, if the consistency is right as well. It's not hard in that sense, but it does require that thought ahead of time of what's going to be the best thing to really open up a new level in the icon. To be fairly uniform. This is back down there so it doesn't puddle a little bit because it's getting a little tall there. So you just push that down. And that's the beauty of the water. It just makes it very easy to move the paint around. And then Christ in the burning bush, or the angel of the Lord, as it says in the scriptures. Do the same thing here. You don't want any area to stand out too much, too prominently. So this kind of softens everything. One thing that I didn't show you that I'll do next time is you got to make sure that the surface is pretty smooth. And this wasn't too bad. You can go over it with a sponge, a natural sponge, and just, get any kind of leftover grains or anything. So we just had a little hair that was kind of attached there, but I was able to get that off just with a paintbrush. It seems darker now than it was, and that seems kind of counterintuitive, but it still gives that place that you can now build more light. we'll finish all the floating, not today, but we'll do all the floating before we go on to the next stage of highlighting. Side seems a little darker than that. I'm just going to take off a little bit of that, and you can do that. And just kind of, you always look at what you're doing. Don't just do it mechanically, but look at it as you're going to know if something needs to be removed, something more needs to be added. So that looks pretty good for there. Now let me show you how to mix up a new paint. I think we'll do the little sheep because they stand out a bit too much anyways. They're kind of showing the cosmic world that Moses has left behind or is about to leave behind. And it's purpling now. I'm going to add a blue, but not just the blue that we use often, indigo blue, which is a pigment made from plants. I'm going to use Vivianite, which is quite grainy, but when you grind it down, you can take some of the paint just from the top, and it's a very beautiful color. So I think we'll try that for this. And then maybe just a little bit of alizarin in there, which is a red, to make it somewhat warmer. And 3 or 4 drops of the egg. I'm going to take the Vivianite, put it in there. More. Now this one I didn't test earlier, so we'll be working together trying to figure out if it's the right color or not. So if you can come a little closer, I don't know if you can see that it's quite greeny in there. The color is very pretty. Kind of a cool blue. See up there, you can see kind of the grains on the side. We don't want those so much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some water to that and take it, what they say, from the top. So since there was 3 or 4 drops of the tempera there, we'll do the same water. Stir it around, and then just let it settle a little bit. And while that settles, I'm going to mix up just a touch of alizarin, crimson. That's kind of not a real bright red, more of a purpley red. We still want it to be purple, but we want it to be a little not so prominent. We just didn't do a couple of that because we don't want too much. So that the blue is settling. We want the heavier pigments to go down, and then we're going to take the paint from the top. Alizarin you have to mix by itself. It doesn't like to be with its friends until it's all mixed in the egg. Just kind of separates all over, so I'm doing that separately. And you get to know the pigments after a while, how they behave. I can mix this. And we'll see if we need this or not. We may not even need it, but I thought I would have it ready to go just in case we need to add a little more red to the blue. Add some water to that as well. See. All right, so taking from I'm just going to take this but not the grains that are underneath. I'm going to tip it a little bit. See how there's the dark there and then the other. I don't know if you can see that very well. So I don't want the grainy ones, I want just the others. So very grainy there, very fine there. So we'll take the more fine. And then we're going to add a little bit of this so it's not straight blue. And see how that changed the color significantly? There's still a few grains in there, but I'll still, when I stir it, I'll tap the brush on the side and take it from the middle part. And then we'll try the lower sheep here, see how we do. Oh no, maybe this guy that's all by himself. Okay, all right. Still a few grains there, but it's not too bad. And sometimes you can even separate twice. I think I may do that. And I think today all we'll do is the faces that we've already done and the sheep. And hopefully when we are able to get back together, we'll have an opportunity. I think that's not bad color. It's still similar, but adds a little more coolness to it. And then we'll be able to more highlights after. And if there are still some grains left behind, like I see a few here and here, if I let that dry completely, I can brush those off with that natural sponge. And you would do that before you start any of the next step, which would be this second highlight. We're hoping to finish this project this year, but we'll see what we're allowed to do with the pandemic. First, we'll have to do those separate. And then when the project is completed, the group is going to be presenting the icon to the church. So it's going to be our gift to the church. And bring glory to God and draw us closer to Him. me see if there's anything else that I wanted to share. Another thing that a friend had said about this particular process is, like when you're covering up some of the highlights, sometimes it seems strange that you're not just adding brighter and brighter and brighter and then you're done. Like, why am I darkening it now? But he said the steps up are possible only if you look down first, like if you get a place where then you can build highlights, then you extend the range of possibilities. And it's kind of like humility. So that's all that I would like to say for today. Thank you so much for joining us.